Welcome to African Unveiled, Echoes of the Drum. The inciting shock. Before dawn broke over Abuja, a secret powerful enough to collapse a nation was already being erased. Amaka Ikena didn't know it yet. She was busy drowning in the logic of code, ignoring a pot of bitter tea as she fortified a bank's firewall. Then, a single call from an Enugu number fractured her reality. Her father, Dr. Chukwudi Ikena, a man who survived civil wars and jungle expeditions.
Hello?
Miss Ikena, this is Inspector Okafor in Enugu. I'm sorry to inform you. Your father was found in his study earlier this morning.
Found?
I'm afraid he passed before we arrived. There's a message he sent at 4:12. It's all time stamped. We can show you.
Was dead, collapsed in his study after returning from a site that didn't exist on any map. The first revelation hit like a physical blow. The official report claimed heart failure, but the digital timestamp on his last message to her was sent after his heart had supposedly stopped. Amaka felt the room tilt. Her father had spent years obsessing over the Codex, a hidden history he claimed underpinned all modern power, a claim she had mocked as a scholar's madness. But as she gripped her phone, a second disturbing truth surfaced. The encrypted file he had attached to his final dramatic warning was currently being deleted from her own secure server by a remote, high-level override she couldn't block. He hadn't died of natural causes. He had been purged. The air in her apartment turned cold as she remembered his final, cryptic voice note.
If they find me, do not trust the silence. Listen for the drum.
God.
If they find me, do not trust the silence. Listen for the drum. She had no time to grieve. As the lights in her building flickered and died, Amaka realized her father's obsession was now her inheritance. By sunrise, the truth was no longer just dangerous. It was hunting her. Enugu did not feel like home. It felt like a trap. The funeral was a blur of red earth and faces Amaka didn't recognize. Men who wore grief like a borrowed coat and watched her with eyes that felt like scanners. This chamber of mourning was not designed to test her courage. It was designed to break survivors. As she stood over her father's grave, the psychological pressure mounted. She wasn't just burying a man. She was burying the only person who knew why her world was collapsing. A thin, elderly man approached her.
Take it, child. It knows you.
What is it doing?
Listen to the earth. It hears your touch.
It's responding.
Pressing a carved, talking drum into her hands, though it felt unnaturally warm, humming with a frequency that vibrated against her scars. Fear spiked as the drum's touch triggered a suppressed memory. Her father had studied years ago, frantic, telling her that some truths require a blood price. She looked at the drum and saw her own reflection in the polished wood, distorted and pale. What would you sacrifice if the truth demanded blood? The old man vanished before she could scream, leaving her alone in the deepening shadows of the compound. Back in her childhood room, the house began to groan, the walls seemingly closing in as the drum began to pulse on its own. It wasn't music. It was a rhythmic interrogation, each beat stripping away her layers of logic until only raw, shivering instinct remained. The shadows in the corner of the room elongated, taking the shape of her father's final warnings.
If they find me, do not trust the silence. Listen for the drum.
God.
She reached for the drum's hidden seam, her hand shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. The final mirror had not yet spoken. The encryption didn't just break. It shattered, revealing a map of West Africa that bled digital ink. Amaka stared at the screen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The men who preached salvation by day ruled damnation by night. The file wasn't just data. It was a roster. She saw the face of the governor, then the CEO of the continent's largest telecom. Finally, the face of the priest who had just presided over her father's funeral. They weren't just leaders. They were the architect of the silent empire, using the codex to manipulate the very memory of the people. From this moment on, Amaka could only choose power or extinction. There was no middle ground, no going back to her quiet life. By morning, Amaka had reverted to instinct. She copied the contents of the drive onto an isolated system, layering encryption upon encryption. What she found unsettled her more than any ghost story could. The files were a lattice of maps, oral transcriptions, and coded annotations linking ancient African sites. NRI, Ife, Timbuktu, Great Zimbabwe, into a single network. Her father had been tracking something he called the Codex, described not as an object, but as a living archive capable of shaping collective memory. The parchment fragment referenced the order of the first drum. Guardians sworn to protect this knowledge from those who would weaponize it. As Amaka read, patterns emerged that mirrored modern power structures, media conglomerates, political alliances, even financial crashes. This was not mythology. It was infrastructure. Her hands trembled as she scrolled to a final file, time-stamped only days before her father's death. It ended abruptly with a single line. "They know I am close. If you are reading this, they will come for you too." The knock on the door came almost on cue. Not a polite knock. 3 sharp strikes that cracked through the house. Amaka killed the power, grabbed the drum and drive, and slipped out the back just as the front door splintered inward. She ran through narrow alleys, heart pounding, the drum now silent but heavy against her ribs. Whoever had killed her father was not finished. The past was no longer whispering. It was hunting. Paragraph 4. She didn't stop running until dawn found her on the outskirts of the city, breathless and shaken, crouched beneath a jacaranda tree in bloom. As light spilled across the land, Amaka realized there was no going back to her old life. The algorithms, the contracts, the careful distance she had kept from belief.
It's gone. All of it. There's only forward now.
All of it felt irrelevant now. Her father's world, the one she had dismissed as obsession, had been real, dangerous, and very much alive. The drum rested beside her, inert once more as if conserving its voice. In the quiet, she made a decision that frightened her more than pursuit. She would follow the trail her father had left, not out of faith, but out of defiance. If these hidden forces believed they could control history by silencing it, they had underestimated the daughter of a man who refused to forget.
They thought silence would keep us tame, but silence only taught me to listen. I hear my father's warnings. I hear the things they tried to erase. Today, I answer louder.
As the sun rose higher, Amaka stood and began walking toward the road, carrying with her an inheritance older than nations. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the first drum waited to be answered, and when it was, Africa's buried memory would awaken.
Welcome to Africa Unveiled. Ayinla.